What's up, Central Illinois? It's Derek Hayden here. Hey, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We had the opportunity to interview Gregory Offner, and Greg gave us so much value in his interview that Garrett and I decided not to cut him off at the 30-minute mark. So because he was giving us so much value, we just let him keep talking, and we're going to cut this episode into two separate parts. So here's part one. Next week, if you'd like to hear part two, go ahead and tune in. You can catch the rest of Greg's episode. So let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast, where business owners, thought leaders, and community champions from across Central Illinois come to share their story. The Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast. Anything less would be uncivilized.
What's up, Central Illinois? I'm Derek Hayden. I'm here with Garrett Ulmer. We are your hosts for the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast, powered by Zambu. Zambu is a delicious grapefruit or wildberry vodka-based spirit infused with a Brazilian buzz button. It's smooth, tasty, and leaves you with a signature tingle. Learn more at ZambuLiquors.com. Zambu, taste the tingle. All right, Central Illinois. Today's guest is a former world-renowned dueling pianist. I said pianist. He played the piano and plays the piano, okay? He's an event MC, performance expert, and an award-winning keynote speaker and the founder of Global Performance Institute. He also bench presses 350 pounds. Ladies and gents of Central Illinois, please welcome Gregory Offner. How you doing, Gregory?
Derek Garrett, what's up, gents?
Thanks very much, man. Yep, thanks for coming on the show. We're excited to learn more about your pretty nice little resume there and learn how you got to be a 350-pound bench presser.
Yeah.
So,
well, I should point out I weigh 570 pounds, so it might not be that impressive to some. No.
Well, we talked a little bit about it before, we started recording. So I guess I need to know more about your camera, because if you're looking, slim and trim as what you are and weigh 550, then you're doing pretty good, man. We got to figure out the angle there, so.
Nice.
No, man, I'll tell you, I got out of college. I played rugby in college. I played ice hockey before I went there. Before I went to military school, I played ice hockey pretty aggressively. And then the military school I went to didn't have a hockey team. So when I got into college, I was sort of out of practice with hockey, but the rugby team sort of accepted anybody that wanted to play. And I've just constantly made fitness a priority. Like, I think that your brain is what drives everything, but your body is what carries your brain. So if your body isn't feeling good, if your body isn't performing well, no matter how intelligent a person is, and I'm certainly not the most intelligent person in any room, but no matter how intelligent you are, you can't function at your peak because your body is not functioning at its peak. So I don't know, I've been lucky. Like, my family was very active and sports oriented. I grew up around it. And so, my wife and I both make fitness a priority.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
So there you go.
Awesome. That's the story of the 350-pound bench press. So
there you go.
That's the story, which is, incidentally, I weigh like 215. Incidentally, that is not very healthy to be throwing that much weight around. It is I'm 40. It's super bad for my elbows. There's some days I wake up and I'm like, oh, why does my back hurt? Oh, because I'm 40 and I woke up. Okay. It's just, my dad used to say, well, my dad still says, he's like, aging is not for sissies. Aging is really tough.
Man, that is as true a statement as it gets, for sure. So
yep, for sure.
Derek and I'm approaching 40 and he's a few years under me. And there are times that we walk through, especially in the last few weeks, it's like, holy cow, this hurts. I hurt this. I mean, I literally broke my toe at a dodgeball match a few weeks ago for my 11-year-old son's birthday party. I came into work and could barely walk. I'm like, what do you happen? I'm like, I broke my toe playing dodgeball with young kids, Yep. So it's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. At the same time, I threw my back out filling up water balloons for my kids.
Yeah.
So we were both limping into the office together, on one leg. So yeah. Aging
and
is
that's the thing.
persistent.
There isn't a good story. So I have a 20-month-old, and we're now cognizant of what type of toy we give her. Because if it's within face shot, she'll just wheel her arm around and doesn't even think about it. I'm getting clocked in the side of the head with a Fisher-Price telephone. And it's like, you look like, who is it? Edward Norton in Fight Club when you show up the next day.
Exactly.
I was playing with my daughter, man, I swear.
Yeah,
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Gregory, we want to learn more about your business background. But before we do, we're going to take you through our speed round where Garrett asks you 6 questions and we try to answer them or you try to answer them in under 60 seconds.
All right.
Have at it.
All right. Are you ready?
Wait, I have to answer all 6 in 60 seconds?
If you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times we interrupt people and
we'll ask our 6th question. Typically it's geared to Central Illinois. So we'll just kind of flow with 5 and go with 6 and see what your answer is on the 6th one. So,
okay. Is the answer Rockford? I'm just curious.
that is a possible answer, I guess.
It could be. Yeah. I guess you never know.
All right.
First concert that you ever attended.
Kiss.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Your favorite movie?
The Labyrinth.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip.
All right. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Favorite social media platform?
I don't like any of them. TikTok. TikTok's kind of fun.
Okay.
I feel that's becoming the craze, and Derek and I talk about it all the time. We keep trying to learn more about it. Last but not least, we typically ask individuals if they're from the Central Illinois area, why Central Illinois? So why don't you tell us where you're from, a little bit about your story there, and why you enjoy the area that you're at?
So I'm from just outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The town is called Lansdale. Interesting to note, HBO's got this new series, forget what it's called, but it's kind of like Downton Abbey in the US. And in the very first episode, they're at the Lansdale train station. Lansdale is not a town that anybody really, it was not on anybody's map, so to speak, when I grew up there. It was sort of a forgotten town, but it was one of the larger railroad stations as Pennsylvania was becoming more populated as the country was first, really growing. So interesting town to be from, but an interesting town to leave, I believe, as well. The local school district, North Penn School District, had a phenomenal music program when I was young, and we lived maybe 300 yards from the high school itself. So every night in the summer, I could hear the marching band practicing, and it was amazing. We'd be outside, and you could hear these beautiful brass chords just swelling as the marching band did their thing. We'd walk over every Thanksgiving Day to watch the LC, the Lansdale Catholic, North Penn sort of rivalry football game. And I just have a lot of great memories growing up there. Grew up across the street from a dairy farm too, which is kind of unique, I think, these days. So, cow manure reminds me of home, that smell, which is sort of awkward, I guess. But I have a lot of fond memories there. I grew up, my dad worked in Philadelphia. And so as a kid, often I would ride with him down into the city when he'd go to work. And I loved the commute. It was neat watching it go from these sort of rural area that we lived in to this bustling, busy city. I was always fascinated by the historical buildings. Obviously, we've got a lot of history here in Philadelphia with Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell and whatnot. And so early in my career, the opportunity arose to take a territory in Philadelphia. I was in sales, and I jumped at the chance. And I've been living here really, except for 4 years I spent living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I've been living here ever since.
Very nice. The cow manure kind of hits home for us. We are in Central Illinois, and that is pretty much where we live, is around the cow manure. So we have a little something in common there.
I feel that. I mean, listen, I used to have lots of clients in the Chicagoland area, and I wouldn't dip too far out of there just because of the business I was in. But I was recently in Rockford delivering a speech, and sort of driving from O'Hare to Rockford. I was like, I'm getting that smell. Yeah, it smells like home.
It's a constant swirl around here. So,
for sure.
Well, Gregory, thanks for sharing that. Well, I'd like to learn more about. It sounds like you got several different business backgrounds, business ventures. Start from kind of where you started, and tell us how you got to where you are now, and tell us about your business along the way.
Yeah. So I got into college thinking I wanted to be a music teacher, because my music teacher in high school had a tremendous impact on the way I saw the world and the opportunities I had within it at that time. But as I started to study music, I lost the love for it. It was just completely a different experience than I was really prepared for. So I stopped studying music and started focusing on philosophy and psychology. Short explanation why. I was in a rock band, and our lead guitarist was a philosophy major at another school. And no matter what kind of disagreement, argument, conversation we'd be in, this guy somehow found a way to be right. And I was like, dude, how are you doing this? And it was all these rhetorical devices and logic traps that he learned in philosophy. And I thought, well, damn, if you can't beat them, join them. So I wanted to know those tricks. So I started studying philosophy. That got me interested in how the brain worked, right? Because philosophy is what we do with our brain in terms of the thoughts that come out of it. But psychology is how that brain actually works. So I got fascinated with both of those areas. When I got out of college, believe it or not, there's not a big job market for people with a, tri-degree in music, philosophy, and psychology. There just isn't really a demand for that. So I thought, what am I going to do? Someone suggested sales. The closest I'd been to sales was really working as a waiter. And I thought, well, yeah, what the heck? I'll give it a try. Couple of interviews along the way, I just thought, God, this sucks. Like, this is not the way I want to spend the rest of my life. And I was about ready to give up. But someone introduced me to a company called Cintas. I'd heard of them, but I didn't really know much about them. And the guy that I interviewed with there had gone to the same college as me, and he played rugby at the same college as me, albeit many years before. And I just felt a connection with him. And he, not in so many words, said to me, look, dude, just come in, do what I tell you to do. I'm going to make sure you're successful. And I thought, all right, well, you can't get much better opportunity than that. And he was true to his word. He really mentored me and shepherded me through the first couple of years in that organization, helped me hit President's Club, get promoted. That's when I went to Toronto. And, it really is true. People don't leave their job. They leave their bosses, because as he and I sort of split and went our different ways in the company, and maybe it was also some misconceptions I had about what leadership meant, I started to think, gosh, it's been 7 years. Maybe it's time for me to move on to something else. And so I did. I wound up in the world of insurance. I got recruited by an insurance company selling a very specific casualty product. It was trade credit insurance, or accounts receivable insurance. Boy, that was harder than I thought it was going to be. Very, very niche product here in the States. And so I did that for about a year and a half. And the boss, I was not doing well at it. I was not succeeding at this. And the boss pulled me into his office and he said, I got to tell you, you're one of the most intelligent people I've run into, but this is not the place for you. You're not succeeding here, and you should be succeeding where you are. So I think the best thing I can do for you is let you go. And I don't know if he was just a master at BS and making me feel good about the termination, or if he was sincere with those words. I'd like to think because of his personality, he was sincere, but it really was one of the best things, because I would have just continued to grind my wheels and sort of spin out as much as I could, but I wasn't happy and I didn't like it. I landed at a healthcare consulting firm, and they had offered me a sales role, but I said, I feel like I'm getting pinholed into this sales position, and I never wanted to be a sales guy. I just happened to be okay at it. I guess more than okay if you're making P Club. But I said, I really want an account management role, because I know how to bring them in, but I have no idea how to keep them happy once they're here. And I feel like for me to do anything other than sales, I have to understand that competency. That's how I started visiting Chicago. My territory was Minnesota to the bottom of Texas. So I was on a plane constantly learning all about different organizations. And I had a bit of now a business background, right? Sort of like a street business MBA from the work I did in accounts receivable. Because I'd been poring over companies' AR, understanding what their delinquency records look like, what their 30, 60, 90, what their receivables turn looked like. I don't want to get too technical with terms, but I started to learn about the stuff I avoided in school. Because I had zero interest in math in college. I was like, keep me away from math. I don't like languages, philosophy, psychology. That's my jam. Math? Turns out, kids, math is probably the most important language we can learn. So maybe we would have done that a bit differently. But here we are traveling the world in my account management role. And I'm thinking now I'm basically going to cobble for myself an MBA program. I'm not going to go back and do it and spend all the money, but I'm going to now pursue roles that put me in a position to do something else, get into a leadership role where I can influence the culture and the direction of an organization. Because prior to turning 30, I had worked 40 different jobs. Some of them were summer jobs. Some of them were like onesie-twosie things. Like I worked for a landscaping contractor for a month and sort of saw what that was like, and that wasn't for me. I worked at a Goddard school for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of changing dirty diapers at 18. I was like, dude, I'm done. Goodbye. This is not the job for me. But I saw a lot of leaders and I saw a lot of onboarding programs, and I had some opinions. I just didn't have the experience to back it up. So about halfway through my time in this consulting firm, we got acquired by a large company out of the Midwest. And they had some very different ideas about where they wanted to take our organization compared to what the founders that I was working for initially thought. And so they started to change comp plans, and I saw the writing on the wall, but I liked what I was doing in sort of the ancillary healthcare market. So I started looking for a job as a health insurance broker. And I had been offered a job and was about to accept it. And I'm out at happy hour with a buddy, and I'm explaining about this job. And this woman, no idea who she was, turned around and goes, "Did you just say you're going to be an insurance broker?" I said, yeah. She said, "Well, I work for a firm. Our headquarters is right across from City Hall here in Philadelphia. Would you come interview with them? I get 10 grand if you get hired."
What's the split, right?
Sure. Yeah, I probably should have negotiated that, you know. But so this firm, I became enamored with. The way that they trained and developed their people, I'd never seen anything like it. And so even though they didn't have an employee benefits role, they only had a property casualty broker role. I said, I'll take it. I'd rather do this. And so I started with them in April, let's say, of 2015. And in June of 2015, I got a diagnosis that changed my life. What you told your listeners in the beginning was that in addition to my day job in business, I had a night job as a professional entertainer. I was a dueling and a solo piano player. I've played all over the world. Well, in June of 2015, I was doing a theater show in New Jersey. So sort of like a Billy Joel, Elton John type performance. And then I had my regular piano bar gigs in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and all the other places I played. And I was leaving the theater and heading to the piano bar, and my voice had been just scratchy for a while. But when I sat down at the piano bar to do my warm-up song, nothing came out. Well, something came out, but it sounded a lot like this. And that's not exactly how your voice should sound when you're a professional singer. So I knew something was wrong. Told my boss I had to go, couldn't sing, don't pay me. If you got to fire me, I get it, but I'm not singing on my vocal cords like this. And after a few weeks and escalating through different ENTs, ear, nose, and throat specialists, the folks who look at your voice, I landed in the office of a guy named Dr. Robert Sadaloff. Now, Dr. Sadaloff is known in the ENT community. In fact, when it comes to surgeries and care for the voice, he's invented about 90% of what's used in the world today. So this guy is like the pioneer of vocal cord surgery. He's worked on Neil Diamond, Shania Twain. There's other performers I can't even name because they don't allow their names to be used in public about vocal injury. But he said, "I've never seen vocal cords as badly damaged as yours. Not on a professional singer, not on someone who's still performing. And if you don't do something about what's going on in your throat in the next 2 weeks to 2 months, your vocal cords are going to become permanently paralyzed and you'll never speak again."
Holy cow.
So for me, having just landed what I thought was my dream job during the day with a company that really cares about and invests in its people, all they expect me to do is be able to go out there and talk about their products and services. And having now this really fascinating career in the evening that I've built up with piano bars and theater shows, and it was really gaining momentum in terms of getting out of the bars and into the theaters. And I can't do either of them. So this put me at a crossroads. And over the next 5 years, I would go on to have 15 surgeries, 13 to rebuild and repair my vocal cords, 2 to completely rebuild a valve in my stomach. I had a massive acid reflux problem that was contributing to my vocal cord issue, so they had to rebuild this valve and stop the acid. In the middle of that 5-year surgical journey, I became incredibly depressed to the point where, one day I was waiting for the train to work and I was thinking maybe I'd be better off under the train rather than in it. And that was the moment for me, thinking back to my background in psychology and how these thoughts work, where I said, that's not just a fleeting thought, that's a real consideration. And you got to take action on this because that's not okay. So I did a couple of things, but the real spark, the catalyst for me to do what I do now came at a Tony Robbins event. But it didn't come from Tony. It came from somebody I met in the concession line. Her name is Svetlana. She was standing in front of me while we were waiting for food. I was waiting for soup. I was on the keto diet at that point, so really all I could have was soup, which sucked because it wasn't very good soup, but it was still keto-friendly soup. And she just sort of turned around and said, "Hey, first time here?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, this is my 10th." I said, "Wow." We start chatting back and forth, and she's telling me about her story, which is amazing. What this woman's gone through in her life. I was shocked. mouth probably, agape, jaw on the floor while she's talking. And then at some point she goes, well, what about you? What's your story? And I'm here thinking, nobody cares about my story after you hear that. That's like asking me to go up and sing after Celine Dion. Like, nobody wants to hear that. So I started sharing with her. And the beautiful thing about strangers I've learned is that I don't care about them and they don't care about me. So if they have a negative opinion of me, I don't care because I don't know them. What better person to be completely honest with? That way, if you're rejected, you don't care. But just maybe they can look at your situation without the bias that your friends and family members would have. So I full kimono, as they say, was just open and honest with Svetlana as I shared where I was in my life and what I was going through. And as I'm sort of wrapping it up, I can see a sparkle in her eye and she's smiling. And I'm like, what is this lady smiling about? And she says, you don't see it, Greg, do you? I said, I guess not. What? She said, you keep talking about all of these parts of your life as if they're separate, almost like they're in little buckets. There's the musical part of your life, and there's the interesting psychology, the curious part of your life, the academic curiosity. You have all these different parts of your life. And it seems to me like you've been trying really hard to keep them all separate. But what do you think would happen if you just fused them all together? And I leaned in because I was hoping she had the answer. I knew I didn't. Otherwise, I thought I probably would have acted on it before. And as I lean in, she does that move where, you sort of like take somebody by the shoulder to point them in a direction and show them something. And she points me towards the stage where Tony Robbins was speaking. And she points at that stage. She goes, I think that's where you belong. I think everything you've done up until this point has led you here to realize that's where you belong. That's what you're capable of doing. And I don't know if it's because of all the adrenaline and, neurochemicals that are going on being in this new environment, or if it was because she was right. But I decided to instead of discounting her opinion as a stranger who didn't know anything, I decided to wonder, what if she's right? What could that look like? So I went back to my hotel room that night and started furiously journaling. What could that look like? What would I want it to do for me? What would I want to do for it? And then I started interviewing people. I started interviewing other speakers. I mean, that's one thing I did get from Tony Robbins is the best copy the best. They learn from the best. So I thought, well, I got LinkedIn. I know people. Let me go see who I know who knows pro speakers. So I sat down with at least 50 of them. It might have been more. I tell people generally it was 50 because I know it was at least that many, over coffee or on a phone, and just talked to them. I asked, what would you do differently if you started today? What's the hardest part about what you're doing? What would a person need to have to be able to succeed in this role? And to a person, the number one concern was sales. They said, you got to be able to sell. You got to be able to get your product out there. And I got to tell you guys, like halfway through these conversations, probably at the 25th person, I was starting to go, yeah, you know what? I think I am meant for this. Because the thing they're all saying is the hardest part of this is the thing I've been doing for the last 15 years. And if I can sell somebody's insurance product that I don't really care about, I'm sorry, all of my former employers, but I didn't really care that much. If I can sell that, I've got to be able to sell me. I care about me. I want me to be successful. And so I decided I was going to make a change. I decided that I was going to make that change January 1st, 2020. Because I thought it had temporal significance. If you've ever read the book When by Daniel Pink, he says that human beings are more inclined to stick with things when we have landmark dates. Those are the first of the month or a birthday or an even number like 10-10, 20-10 or something like that. For some reason, they have psychological significance to us. So I thought, well, 1/1/2020, 2020 vision, baby, let's do it. But I started planning. February of 2019, I incorporated my business. I bought a website. I started to build the website myself. I launched it so I could show it to other people, to friends. And I walked into my office June 1st, 2019 to find a printed out copy of the homepage of my website on my desk. Now you have to understand that at this point, I worked for a company where I was in charge of their risk management department, but they also had a human capital consulting department. They had a department that literally did the things I was saying I was going to do on the homepage of my website. And my boss had just written, see me, ... on the page. Now, we had a very cordial meeting, and he said, if this isn't a problem, it won't be a problem. And I said, it won't be a problem. But it turned out by the end of that month, it was a problem. And we decided that I would have a better shot of being successful if I left. I told you about the first gift that a boss gave to me. I think that was the second one. Because if I had waited till January 1st, 2020, even with my sales skill, I don't believe I would have been able to overcome the magnitude of COVID and start a speaking business at that time. But because I had a 6-ish month head start, I had built up enough business. I had already sold several opportunities to go speak. So I had revenue coming in that when COVID hit, it was not, oh my God, what am I going to do? It was, how are we going to pivot? Because I had proved the concept to myself. In 6 months, I proved I can make this happen. But for COVID, I would have been making more that first year than I ever did in my W-2 world, which I didn't make bad money. So I was sort of surprised. Pivot through COVID. Changed things a little bit in terms of what our primary offering was over those 2 years because folks were sort of keynoted out. But because I had the music background, we were able to offer these engaging sort of family fun sing-along sessions on Zoom where I would just do my dueling piano, my solo piano bar act on Zoom for a group of people all over the world. I mean, we once did an audience of 6,000 people, wow, pretty much on every continent. That was wild. And, now we're seeing live events boom back. And I'm going back out on stages and back in front of people and sharing my message. So maybe that's a longer answer than you wanted, but I feel like that's one of the more complete answers to how did we get from there to here.
It's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So
thank you for listening to this episode of the Central Illinois Business Leaders Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CIBL podcast. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It's the civilized thing to do.